What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. Snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. Snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today.
what's going on, folks? Maria, Scott, thank you so much for the subscription and resubscription. It's good to be back. And yeah, so I got a new intro screen, which you saw. And yeah, had a good little break. Needed a bit of a break to work on some back end stuff, and that's one of the things that I, worked on. And yeah, so it's good. It's real good. Today's exciting, and I'm I'm really hoping I avoid an international incident, because I'm attempting something that I've not tried before. I've never eaten it, and I've never made it, so it's a first for me, and I'm looking forward to it because it sounds real good. And I'm gonna murder the pronunciation of it, but I'm reading it as Pastitsio, which is the best way that I can describe it is like a Greek lasagna. Yeah, so it is made with usually a round pasta that goes down on the bottom first, something like a penne or a ziti. There are actual Pastitsio noodles that are made. I cannot get them around me, so I'm doing the best that I can with what I got, and those get tossed. So, okay, let's back up just a second. The thing about this particular recipe is everybody's mother has their own recipe in Greece. Like, every island is a little bit different, like mainland, wherever. And so it's one of those things that everyone has an opinion. Everyone has kind of their own method of making it and the way that they go about doing it. So I'm trying to make one that is true to the spirit of it without, like I said, causing an international incident. So I'm doing the best I can, Maria. But yeah, so you have this tubular pasta that goes down on the bottom and usually gets tossed with some kind of cheese. Some recipes that I've seen will toss it with either like Parmesan, or I've seen it with feta. Sometimes there's eggs, sometimes there's not. It really kind of depends on the individual's recipe. Then there's a meat sauce that goes down over it. And from all the recipes that I've read, the sauce itself is pretty dry. Like, there's really not a whole lot of additional liquid. It's not to say that, the meat's dry or anything like that, but it's mostly a dry sauce that ends up going down. And that's got things like cinnamon, nutmeg, some allspice, some clove, tomato, a little bit of wine, salt and pepper, stuff like that. But that takes a little while to kind of cook down and get to that point. And then the whole thing is topped with a bechamel sauce, which I thought was hilarious until I read kind of the history. And this sort of modern take on Pastitsio originated with a gentleman who wrote sort of the first Greek cookbook. I'm going to murder his name, and I apologize. It's Nikolaos, and I'm completely blanking on his last name. Tselementes or something to that effect. I can't remember, and I apologize. However, what's interesting is his last name is synonymous. Tselementes, that's it. Thank you, Maria. His name is synonymous with the cookbook, and it's actually a synonym for the cookbook. So, and Maria confirmed this, if you're asking for a cookbook, you call it a Tselementes, which is amazing to me. But in going back into his history, he was born back in like the late 1800s and studied cookery and went to Germany and Austria and ended up working in the US for a long time. And when he came back and wrote this cookbook, he integrated a whole lot of like French techniques and obviously kind of the Italian influence with lasagna. But that's where the bechamel sauce. And so now it's completely synonymous with the recipe, and you have to have it. A bechamel sauce on a very basic level is a roux, so your fat and your flour that are cooked together. Then you add warmed milk to it to create kind of the sauce, and then you fold in cheese, season it with salt and pepper. And in this case, it is, see, it's even called Greek cookery. Cook you look lumpy. I'm not a cannibal. I'm not going to cook you like one of my French girls. But yeah, it's sort of the benchmark for everything. But anyways, so the bechamel gets put over the top, and then the whole thing gets baked. Now, it's going to take some time, but we're gonna give it a go. And with any luck, I am going to avoid an international incident, like I said, because I've not made this before. I've not eaten this before. I'm going to do my best. And so yeah, before we start, I need to put something in the oven real quick. No, that totally wasn't a stunt Pastitsio. Yes, actually it was. So, funny haha. It takes about an hour or so to bake, and I'm like, that's not really conducive for streaming this kind of platform. And so I went and made one a little bit earlier and put the stunt one into the oven. So then that way, when we're all said and done, you know, we're not sitting here waiting for an hour for it to actually be done. I will say, however, that in the process of making it and trying to follow the recipe and what people have said, there's a couple of things that popped up that I'm gonna do different, but that's okay, because we're gonna get to the same place, just a little bit differently. So, in terms of our timing for everything else, the meat sauce is going to take at least like a half hour to kind of simmer, so I want to get that started first, and then, because I already have a pot of water on to boil for the pasta, so then that way when we're ready for it, we can actually let it cool down a little bit before assembly, because at least my understanding when it comes to assembly is you don't really want to assemble it too hot. You actually want it to be slightly cooler, so then that way it's easier to work with. Yeah, so we'll work on that. We'll boil the pasta, and then we're going to use the pot for the pasta as a double boiler to kind of reheat our bechamel sauce once that's ready to go. So in that way we're getting kind of everything done at the same time. And then to serve along with everything, we're going to make a Greek salad. I'm not going to put olives in it, only because I personally am not a fan of olives. I've tried them many times throughout my life, but I can't. I got nothing against them. I want to like them, but just for whatever reason I don't. So I'm going to leave them out. However, I am putting capers in because capers in there are delicious. That's what we're going to do. I do have one little surprise that I changed some stuff up, and I've been talking about it, but I'm finally ready to unveil it. Of course, now that I'm trying to unveil it, it's not working. That is hilarious. Oh man, what on earth happened? Huh. Well, ring light apparently doesn't want to turn on. Anyways, we have stove cam. So huzzah. Then that way we can actually work at the stove and take care of that stuff. So yay! And I have no idea why the ring light suddenly decided to not work, but hey, we got stove cam, so hooray, hooray, hooray. In the meantime, let's work on that meat sauce. So in kind of getting everything ready, thankfully, I've kind of taken care of a lot of the prep work, I guess. Like, I've kind of measured stuff out, and so there's not a heck of a lot that I necessarily need to do, and we can just kind of get moving. What I have here is the half of it's a white onion. It's what I'm using because it's what I got, and a couple of cloves of garlic that are going to go into the beef mixture. The beef mixture is going to have about a pound of ground beef, or minced beef, as it's called. This onion, garlic. We're going to put in a can of chopped tomatoes that are totally Greek. We're going to put in a little tomato paste, again, totally Greek. Touch of sugar, a little bit of red wine, which again is totally Greek. And then for the seasoning, we're going to drop in a bay leaf, some cinnamon, some ground cloves, some allspice, and some ground nutmeg, and then salt and pepper. But for the meat mixture on this, I'm going to approach it like I do for my taco meat, just in the methodology, not in the flavoring, just so we're clear. So we're going to get the beef into the pan. We're going to add kind of our liquids, and we're going to add a little bit of additional water just to kind of cover it while it's cold, and then let it simmer down. And then the whole idea behind that is so that not only does the mince come out really fine, but it's also super fluffy and tender. And then the rendered fat at the very end is what will end up frying, like the onions and the garlic and everything else. But then we're going to strain it to kind of take out any of the additional fat, because we don't want a pool of fat going around. So that's the plan of action so far. So let's get the beef with the liquid and everything else going first, and then we'll take it from there. So I've already got my pound of beef here, and we'll put it into the pan. And I've got my totally Greek red wine. I gotta say, it was really, really helpful to be able to go to the market, and because one of my biggest concerns when it came to, making this was making sure that I was trying to use, ingredients from the place to try to make it taste as authentic as possible. So I was really concerned that I wouldn't be able to source Greek olive oil and Greek tomatoes and Greek wine, but I lucked out when I went to the market, and this brand, totally Greek, saved me. So then that way I've got, totally Greek everything. So then that way this is super authentic and inoffensive. Okay, so got that. Let's add the can of tomatoes real quick. We'll start kind of mashing it up. Again, this is totally Greek brand diced tomatoes. I'm going to add the tomato paste in at the very end, so then that way it kind of has a chance to fry a little bit. Get some additional flavor. I've not turned the heat on yet, just because I'm trying to break this up a little bit. I'm going to add some water. Now, Maria, I beg of you, have patience. There is madness to my method. I've been making my kind of like taco meat, most ground meat mixtures this way for a while because what it gives me is a really fine final texture on the meat, and it's really fluffy, and it's amazing. And so I assure you this is done with nothing but the utmost love. I've got my bay leaf, nutmeg, cinnamon, allspice, and clove on here, so I'll drop those in now. You're probably wondering, well, hey, why didn't you fry it up in like some oil or something like that in order to, you know, wake up the flavors and everything? Well, I think we talked about this last time, that by heating it up, what you're doing is you're getting the oils that are inside of it to become really volatile, and then that way you're smelling it, which is great. But the problem is when they're becoming volatile, what it means is that the aromas are escaping, they're not staying in what it is that you're making. So by adding them dry like this without kind of having toasted them or whatever, everything is going to go into what I'm making. You about ready to leave?
Yeah, I gotta bounce.
He'll hydrate.
Sorry.
That's all right, baby.
I'm sorry. Fare thee well, peoples.
All right. Have a good time.
Thanks, I love you.
Love you too. I'll see you later.
Peace.
Peace. Okay. So yeah, I've got this over high heat right now, just to kind of get it up to the boil. And then I'll turn it down to simmer and just let it go. And we can work on everything else. Alright. Let's chop that onion up. So I'm just going kind of crosswise like this, and then I'm going to go back crosswise again. I cut the root end off, just so then that way it'd be a little bit easier to work with. Beautiful. Then I'm just going to add these to the meat mix. Let them do their thing. But first, we need garlic. Ken's wearing grease. My name is Decay. I drank what? Yeah, exactly. Will eating this give you a 6-pack? No, darling, it will not. If I go to a hot tub, my essential oils released? Yes, that's exactly it, Lumpy. If you go into a hot tub, your essential oils do get released. That's why we call hot tubs at cons, you know, human soup. Make it look easy. Chopped an onion for my recipe last week. Oh, that's right. You're, Oh, I'm sorry you cut yourself, Lumpy Pickle. That sucks. I've been there. I've done that. There's no shame. It's, you know, bound to happen when you're playing with super sharp objects. Okay. Garlic and onion. chopped up. And we're gonna go add these to the meat. That is the only problem with doing this myself. Is now I'm like, oh, I gotta change cameras since I walked over here. Oh, I gotta change this because I don't have like an automatic camera switch or anything like that. But okay, so meat mixture is simmering. I'm gonna add salt at the end like I normally do, just to make sure that it's not overly seasoned. So that's my methodology when I make it. So I'll go ahead and do that then. For the bechamel sauce, instead of the traditional butter with flour, we're going to use olive oil with the flour to make the base roux, and then we'll mix in 500 mils of milk, and we've got grated totally Greek cheese, aka Parm, that we're going to add to it. I've shredded it earlier because it's pretty dang boring to watch me shred cheese, but we'll have that shredded, and some of it's going to get tossed with pasta, some of it's going to get added to the bechamel sauce, and then some of it's going to go on top of it when it's done before we pop it into the oven. So all that is taken care of. Bechamel, other than, you know, measuring out the milk, I've got nutmeg already grated, ready to go, because that's kind of a mandatory thing that goes into the sauce. And then it's just technique and everything else. So in the meantime, thinking we should work on that side salad, and for it, got a small red onion, green pepper. We'll squeeze some lemon over it and add some totally Greek olive oil to it. Then I've got my capers here, which now you can actually see what I pulled out. Anyways, lemon, capers. I gotta rinse the green pepper. We gotta peel this. So cucumber, peel on, peel off. It personal preference. This particular type of cucumber, I'm not a fan of the peel on it. If it were an English or like a Persian cucumber, then I would say yes, absolutely, let's leave the peel on. But this particular type of cucumber, like I said, I'm not a fan of it, so I'll go ahead and peel that. And then I'm using cherry tomatoes because these are probably the tastiest ones that are currently available here. And final salad is going to be based off of the amount of tomatoes that I got here. So there we go. Whoop. Tomato into the cheese. And it sounds like that's a simmer, so we can turn it down. I really don't want it hard. Alright, we got tomatoes, we got that. Grab a peeler. Alright. A lot of times I'll cut these a bit smaller if I'm putting them in a salad, but for, I don't know, Greek salad, every time I've had it, it's usually in larger chunks, and so I kind of feel like that's what I need to do. So I'm having the cherry tomatoes, and putting them in there. And then other than a little salt and pepper, it's just going to be the olive oil and a bit of lemon juice. Or red wine vinegar. But I figure, you know what, I got a nice fresh lemon, so I might as well add that. Okay. That's probably about 3/4 this time. Okay, bit of green pepper. I'm gonna keep these ends because they're still good, but what I'm doing here veins, seeds. How was everybody's Easter? Keep some cheese to put on top of the bechamel later before you put it in the oven. Yes, yes I am. The grated cheese that I have here, it's being split into 3. Third of it going in, mixing in with the pasta, a third of it going into the bechamel, and then a third of it going on top of it before it goes into the oven. Because you got to have that on top. How was everybody's Easter? Mine was pretty low key, actually. It's kind of nice. Okay. I'm liking all that stuff. Okay, so those. Thinking with the onion, I'll slice it up a little bit thinner, just so then that way it's not super large pieces of onion, because most people aren't a big fan of that. Depends on the strength of the onion. Reds typically are kind of the sweetest variety. But that also really depends on where they're grown and the kind of soil. Not a third, just some to give it a nice color to the top of your pastitsio. Yeah. Well, I went with about a third, because I mean, this isn't it looks like it's a lot, but it's a super fine shredding. Actually, this is even better. It's a super fine shredding, and so even though it kind of looks like a lot, it's really not that much. But I figured that will do us good on top. Then the pan I'm going to wipe down with a bit of olive oil before putting everything into, so then that way hopefully it doesn't stick quite as much. So let's do that down the middle, and just this. I'm like, okay, that's looking good. And let's Why did I throw the lid away? So weird. Okay. That'll do. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Literally. Now, okay, here's a question for you. Yes, absolutely capers. You know what? I can put more because I like them, so I'm good with it. Here's a question for you, Maria. Typically, you know, you'd add feta, which I'm down with. I like feta. How do you feel about adding Mazurthra to the salad instead of feta? I love Mazurthra. Yes? Okay. Nicely. Oh, need that one. Got my totally Greek olive oil here. That. Alright, let's get some salt and pepper. Let's give that a toss and a taste real quick. Okay, I'm happy. It's got a nice balance to it. We do that as well. Okay, good to know. Good to know, Maria. Actually, different grater. So this is Mazurthra, and it is a used milk cheese that usually is pressed into kind of a spherical shape. They just happen to be selling it as wedges, which is kind of nice. I really love this stuff grated, like on salads and stuff. Mostly because I really like used milk cheeses anyways. There we go. That is looking super delish. Excellent. Hi, Jane. How you doing, buddy? Oh, oregano. That's a good call. Just a sprinkle of it. Cool. And we'll let that sit and marinate until we're ready to go. In the meantime, put all these little bits and pieces of stuff away, because then we can get to work on kind of everything else. Okay. Put it in there. Pepper in. So I'll end up using these pretty quickly anyways. And keep that lemon separated. There we go. All right. Excellent. Salad done. They'll hydrate. Very good. Okay, back to the stove. Go. That's coming along nicely. In the meantime, I'm thinking, let's move some stuff around. Go. There. This is okay. This is my little. Oh, I don't think the camera is functioning at the moment. No, that's interesting. That camera is not on for some reason. It stopped working for some reason. That's very odd. Huh. I went to... Huh. I don't know why it decided to freeze up like that. That is very strange. But, anyways, yeah, stove camera's frozen for some reason, which is very bizarre. But as you can see from that stovetop, it's... One of my biggest pet peeves is about most home stovetops, how all the burners are these different sizes, and it is really annoying because I just want, 4 or 6 of the exact same size large burner that I can cook over, instead of like having a super dinky one, having a powerful one, and a couple of other small ones. And then I've got this one up the middle, which is supposed to be for doing like roast pans or something like that. I'm like, the only times I've ever turned that thing on is after I finish cleaning the stovetop, just to make sure that it's lighting up. Like, I've never used it as an actual burner. It does me absolutely no good. And so, yeah. So if anybody has any connections to any commercial like stove makers, like, tell them to knock it off. Just put 6 burners on there. To be honest, what I think would be amazing is if a company decided to put out a series of stovetops that was themed around like the flames of hell, and you had to sign a waiver when you go to buy it, understanding that it's going to put out a ton of heat, and if you burn yourself, it's your own fault kind of thing. But I think the marketing would be absolutely amazing for that. Like, you know, a stove too dangerous for most people. Can you handle the heat? You know, stovetop that makes Satan himself go, whoa, let's turn that down a little bit. That's a little too hot. Which I think would be hilarious. But that's just me. Those are my needs. That's what I kind of want. But, could be interesting at least. So, okay, well, I've got water going for that. The meat's simmering away, so I'm going to get started on that bechamel sauce. Part of me is thinking I should just bust out the portable burner for the time being, since nobody can see nothing right now. And I don't have anything else that I need to cut up, so I can get rid of this. Alrighty, I think we're just about ready to go for that. Oh. Okay. Alright, we are getting there. This is getting really, really close. I'm going to go ahead and put in about a tablespoon of tomato paste. Good. That is going just fine. I need that. Let's get the milk. So, when you go to make a bechamel sauce, or basically anything where you're making a roux first and then adding some kind of liquid, it's best practice to get the liquid heated up a little bit first, so then that way it's not a massive temperature shock when you go to add it. And in this particular case, we're also going to be adding an egg to it, and that's something that we'll have beat up and off to the side, so then that way we can add some of the heated liquid to it in order to temper it, so then that way it doesn't turn into a scrambled egg. So I'm just cracking an egg in there, giving it a quick mix. So that's ready to go. That's going nicely. Alright, let's get that milk warmed up. I'm going to add a little bit of nutmeg to this now. Now the main burger's being disagreeable. That's awesome. There we go. A little bit of nutmeg. Okay. Trying to rinse out as much as I possibly can, so then that way cleanup just goes way easier. Pepper, cheese, flour. That is 60 grams of olive oil that we're putting there. I'm going to heat it up a little bit before getting going. That is smelling really good. It is looking really good. Okay. What's that? The olive oil. All right. I think we are ready to begin. So. There we go. We're going to let this heat up for just a moment, and then we'll add our flour and we'll start mixing it up, so then that way it'll take away the raw flour cereal taste, and we'll get that toasting just a little bit before we start adding that warm milk to it. Here's our meat mixture. We're going to let this cool down a bit. Just keep it handy. Pasta water is ready to go. Milk is ready to go. Put that down for a minute just so we can get completely set up with what we got to do. Pasta we're going to cook until before al dente. It's actually like dente kind of thing. A couple of minutes before that, because of the amount of time that it's going to bake in the oven. We want to undercook it even more so than normal, so then that way when it comes out it should be just right. That being the case, I'm going to get this into the water now. I'm going to do it for 8 minutes before draining it, and I've already got a colander in the sink ready to go for that. So I've got salt in the water. I don't have any oil just because of my experience. Having oil in the water, the only thing it does is act as a surfactant to keep the bubbles from kind of coming up. It doesn't coat the pasta at all. So we're good to go. I've got a wooden spoon over the top of it, so in the event that it does decide to foam up, the spoon will actually prevent it from kind of going up and over. So let's get going with this. Alright. That's just equal parts olive oil and flour. In this case, it's 60 grams of each. Yeah, and we're just cooking the flour, like I said, in order to get rid of that raw flour taste and smell. Since the milk is warm, I'm actually going to go ahead and add a little bit to it from the eggs. So then that way they'll kind of temper a bit, because when we go to finally add the egg back in, we're going to do it after it's off of the heat. There we go. That is a little toasted. That's okay. I happen to like a roux that's got a little bit of color on it because there's more flavor in there. Now we can start slowly adding our milk mixture. There we go. We just keep whisking it so then that way it stays nice and smooth. Get it with a bit of salt, a bit of pepper. Alright, and so now since this is off the heat, let's add in egg mixture. Just whisk the heck out of it. Alright, let's add in about a third of this. And that'll melt nicely into it. To be honest, I haven't made a bechamel in years. Mostly because, so bechamel tends to be a common base for like mac and cheese, but because I make my mac and cheese with sodium citrate instead of the typical roux mixture. Like I said, I've not really made a bechamel in years, so there we go. Let's give that a taste. It's pretty good, but yeah, it definitely does need more cheese. Thankfully, I've still got more of this that I can easily grate on. About 3 minutes left. Nicely. That's set up to go. Alright, so that is ready. Let's get rid of these. And good. All right, so got that. Got that. Got our dish here. In the meantime, I want to I'm going to drain off kind of the additional fat and liquid in here. So then that way I don't have a pool of fat at the bottom of the tray. All right. So that is now draining. Nice. That's almost ready. That's draining. This I will, let's see, that's got about a minute to go. I'm going to go reheat this. Blame Tselementes for that. Yeah, totally. I do blame Tselementes, since he was the one who brought the whole idea back to Greece. So I'm using my pasta pot here as a double boiler. Because the problem with bechamel is it sets up real quick. And you really need the bechamel to be a little bit thinner in order to spread. And that's got 10 seconds to go. And so I like to use the pasta pot as a double boiler. Boop. Let's start thinking about assembly. Got my pan here, which, because this is a half recipe, I'm using a 10 by 13. I'm going to lay down a little bit of olive oil. And then I'll toss the pasta in this, but I also want to use it to coat the bottom of the can, so that way it kind of helps with not sticking. And even if it does stick, that's So the water that I boiled this in was pretty heavily salted, so the pasta is seasoned. Now, okay. A lot of times when you look at the pictures of the finished Pastitsio, like on blogs and stuff like that, you'll see that like the cross section of it has these perfectly lined up tubes, because somebody has taken the time to carefully align all of the pasta in such a way that it will line up really nicely and look really pretty when they go to take a picture for their blog post. I have a difficult time believing that every household takes the time to do that. Like, I get it for, you know, blog posts and Instagram posts and things like that, but for the normal, we're making it because we want it for dinner sort of thing, I have a very difficult time believing that everyone in Greece, like, carefully aligns, like, all of the pasta, just because who's got time for that? But that's just kind of my thinking on that. But your pasticio's a mess. Now, do you make it in kind of the way where everything is just mixed together, Maria? Or do you do like the multiple layers, or... Even though I just spent all that time just kind of flattening things out. I'm like, let's mix all. Multiple layers, okay. So do you normally do like a single layer of pasta, a single layer of the meat sauce, a single layer of bechamel, or do you do the pasta meat bechamel, pasta meat bechamel, or when you go to make it? I'm liking the way this is looking. It's not perfect, but it's edible. Alright, so now we got our meat that we will pull that bay leaf out, because ain't nobody want to eat that. Okay. Spreading it out, spreading it out. Nice layer. I'm just smoothing the heck out of it. But it's looking and smelling good. Alright. I am happy with the way that that looks. Pasta meat, pasta bechamel. Oh, okay. So just like an extra layer. I can see how that would actually be really good. And really kind of nice and filling and sort of on the cheap, which would be, I think, really good for this. Okay, we got this. We need our bechamel. I am, actually, before I do that, I neglected to add salt to the meat mixture, so I'm just going to hit it with a little sprinkling. Alright. Let's see how that bechamel is. I'm gonna repeat this real quick. There we go. Should smooth out pretty quickly. Alright, that's it. Got to make sure to rinse out that whisk or else it's just going to turn into a hot mess. Alright, here we go. Now, I will say this. When I made the one earlier, I did the same amounts for the sauce. And I kind of feel like it's because I have a big recipe in order to do this. I kind of feel like that this amount isn't quite enough. Like I feel like it should be like a half more so. I'll get that timer in just a moment. Go. Okay. That's looking pretty good. But first, boom. Before and after. Alright, let's get some additional totally Greek cheese on top of this. I'm just using my microplane. Puppy! Probably somebody walking by. There we go. More cheese, or are we good? I think it should be double. Yeah, I think you're right, Maria. That that amount of like, I kind of feel like there should have been an additional, like I said, about 50% more than what the halved recipe called for. But it's my first time. Hopefully not my last. But there we go. And now, this one, I'm okay with the cheese. Okay, cool. Now this one's ready to go into the oven for an hour. Okay, that timer is now counting. So, we are ready to dish it up. Fork. Alrighty. It is looking excellent. sure what that was. Hey, and it actually pulled away from the sides. Okay, let's get a nice big corner piece. Through the magic of TV, one's already done. Woohoo! Yeah. Okay. Moment of truth. I'm not going to leave all that yummy goodness behind. So yeah, not... so it's funny, when you look at all like the blog posts, it's like this super thick thing that's like 3-4 inches tall kind of thing, not quite this thin. This is definitely a flattened out version, but it's looking and smelling excellent. And then of course, got my salad. And use that, because that's a piping hot pan. So, L'chaim, folks. Hail hydrate. Yeah, more pasta, more bechamel. Yeah, to be honest, like I think the next time I make it, Maria, I'm gonna keep I'm not gonna half the recipe, and I'm gonna put it into probably the same size pan. So then that way it's super big and thick, which is kind of the way that I think it's supposed to be. But it's smelling really good. So I'm gonna shove this right in my mouth. Pasta's a little crunchy. But it tastes good. I have to say, I wasn't totally sure about some of the spices, like cinnamon, allspice, clove, and all that, but it works really nicely. That's really good. Bit of salad. Well, yeah, I think it's a combination of two things, Maria. Number one, the pasta on the bottom of the pan, that's where it got really crunchy. And so it sort of makes sense. But yeah, I think, because all the things that I had read said cook it to like a couple of minutes under al dente. I'm thinking you're taking it just to the edge of al dente. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. But to be honest, I'm still going to crush this. It's not like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, I'm never going to eat it. No, I think if anything else, like it could do with cooling down for a bit, and possibly even tomorrow. So then that way, it's had a chance to kind of soften up a little bit. Yeah, spaghetti, lumpy. The kind of pasta that traditionally gets called for with it is it's a Pastitsio pasta. It's kind of like a bucatini, I think it is. It's a hollow spaghetti. So. Salad totally hits the spot. Okay, now the pasta pieces that I just ate, not all that crunchy. Those are all like pretty close to perfect, or just like on the al dente side. So the crunchy pasta really is just the ones that were kind of like stuck against the bottom for that whole time. This recipe was probably developed in like the 1910s or 1900s in this version. Original recipes for it, from what I was able to find, had things like liver in it, and it was wrapped in phyllo dough, but it didn't have like the bechamel. The bechamel was an addition from Nikolaos. Nick. He's the one who decided, hey, let's throw some bechamel on top, because it was kind of like the thing. Mr. Tselementes. So now that I've made this once, it's kind of like the conversation. Marie and I have been talking about this kind of thing for a couple of days. And now that I've made it, because I didn't really have a big frame of reference for it, the next time I make it, it's going to be way better than this. Not that this sucks, but it's going to be way better just because now that I've had a chance to actually make it once, I can think, oh, okay, this is what happened. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to change. So, but it's pretty dang tasty. So, I'm looking forward to shoving more of this in my mouth. But in the meantime, that's what we got going on today, folks. Yeah. So now I need to figure out why on earth that camera stopped working suddenly. But yeah, we're back, baby. Thursday, we're gonna do a big tray bake. Guests are coming over. We got a gluten allergy, we got dairy allergy, and tomato allergy. So we're gonna put together kind of a big tray bake with chicken and rice, and have a salad with it. We'll have rice kind of as the base and everything else, and we'll stir in like peas and things like that at the end. So that should be fun. And then Saturday we're gonna do what's hopefully gonna become a reoccurring thing: the $10 challenge. The $10 challenge is purely because I've noticed that some specific food prices have actually just gone up here. I mean, we know that, food prices have been going up for a while, but it was kind of unusual when I saw this particular price go up. And so, in talking with Mrs. Way, so we thought, hey, you know what? Instead of, hey, we're making some big lavish thing, let's set a challenge where I have $10 to buy ingredients for dinner for both myself and her. The only rules are that I can't rely on, I just happen to have this, standing rib roast in the freezer, I'll just use that. But I'm gonna use just things that you would consider staple pantry items, like a can of beans or a can of, diced tomatoes or something like that. Ketchup, things like that most people would have in their pantries. Those are allowed, but if I'm going to be using some kind of specialty item or something like that, it has to be within that $10 budget. And I'm thinking it should really be kind of a hard $10 hard $10 limit. Because I know I forget the guy's name. There's this guy on YouTube that will make these dishes and be like, oh yeah, you have all this and it's only like $3. Well, yes, but hey, Rob Zoid, welcome. The problem with those particular videos is like, okay, yeah, it comes to like, it only costing like $2-3 or whatever. But in order to get to that point, a lot of money had to be spent to make a large amount. And then per person is what it came down to, that kind of $2 or $3 price. What I'm trying to do is hard limit of, I have a $10 bill to spend and that's it. So I have to figure out dinner for the two of us, buying things, in order to make it. And so that's going to be the challenge. I will probably do the shopping for that on Friday, I'm guessing. And I'm going to keep my receipts if I have to go to multiple places, to just kind of show, okay, this is how much I spent. And then we'll kind of figure it out from there. I have a couple of ideas of what to do, but it's also going to depend on market pricing. Because that's kind of a big deal when it comes to this sort of thing, is that making sure that we're, staying within budget and that market price. So, Rob Zoid, thanks for popping in. We're literally about to end, because I'm gonna go eat and I gotta feed the dogs and, just kind of general stuff like that. So, thank you so much, everybody, for coming in. Thank you for the subscriptions. Thank you for resubscribing. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you to the lurkers too, because I know you're there, but I don't have the window open, so I don't know who you are, but thank you for being here anyways. Y'all are always more than welcome to say something or just hang out and, just see what's going on. So, everyone take care. Have yourself a good night, morning, afternoon, whatever. Yeah, absolutely. And Rob Zoid, the VOD will be up. I always hang on to the VODs, and I usually try to get the streams uploaded to YouTube like the next day. So then that way we can save them for posterity. So thanks so much, everybody. Maria, Lumpy, Rob Zoid, Scott 2572. I know Avocado Cream KitchenAid was here too. And if there's anybody else that I missed, I apologize, but thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Take care and have a good one.
Hello, boys and ghouls. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. Making a snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. Making a snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me?